For those that have been wondering why we have those random 1 or 2 week hiatuses over the past few months,
Here's why.
here's why. These are our little nuggets of joy.
Yep.
This is Parker Jane McLean.
This is Cameron and Kirkland representing the Dutton Ranch from Yellowstone.
And they are class of 2040, high school to be determined.
That's right. We got a 1 and a 2 guard right here.
That's right.
Future 5 stars.
These are this is the deadliest combination in Texas high school female sports.
Absolutely.
Which sport? We're still not sure.
We'll figure it out soon.
We got a connection at Rivals, so.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know. Use your words. Where do you want me to go?
She's gonna wake up. She's gonna wake up.
Just all down the chair. Be like, all right, cut it. Just so you are aware, in the near future, there will be an episode where the two moms that were standing just off screen making sure that those babies didn't scream bloody murder, they will join us as well. And we would love for y'all to be able to hear their perspective of our hectic lives and what their point of view is on a Friday night or in season in general.
Yeah, I mean, because, obviously without them and what they do, we couldn't do what we're doing now. So it's by far they're the heroes here.
Yeah, the glue, if I may.
For sure. Yep.
So now back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Football.
Yeah. So last episode, I was riding solo, trying to piece together what I thought your perspective was and giving my 2 cents on the whole Quinn Ewers thing. But it's official now. My man is left South Lake in the rear view, and he's headed to Columbus to get paid. So
Yeah.
I know my perspective. They've heard a little bit of my perspective. I'm dying to hear yours. I want to hear your just thoughts on the decision, but then I want to hear what you think was the deciding factor.
I mean, I don't think anybody really can understand the true why unless you're like sitting in his shoes and his parents' shoes. I just think I can imagine how hard it is whenever you're dealing with something that is so brand new. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to, as a high school kid having to deal with something that no other high school kid has ever had to deal with before because that issue's never been presented before. And so it's a weird situation. It did sound just from the few articles that I was reading that it was something in regard to the company and the brand and his parents. It was something more personal. I want to say that his mother is a cancer survivor. And then and that company, has to deal with some gut health and whatnot. But, and also one of those things too, where it's like, well, he's also has a chance to go play. Justin Fields is not there right now. And that's not to say that the people, the quarterbacks that are there, aren't going to compete. Obviously, I mean, there's plenty, but he has more of a chance now than obviously if it was a year before. I think that's a big issue. And, just again, to be able to go do that, accept the deal. And I think in the money as well, I mean, having equity in there as well is a little bit different than just saying, hey, here's a check. You know what I mean? Like they're truly invested from what I've heard into that company for longevity. And so I just think it's one of those things to where for them, it was more of those pros, outweigh the cons. And at that time they felt that's what's best. And, who knows? Everybody's going to have their own opinions, but I mean, support the kid and obviously he's a baller, so I would not be surprised if he shows up and he's competing for that number one job.
100%. I mean, last summer, I think it was, or maybe last spring, the clip was surfacing or making its rounds on social media about his 70-yard throw, and I know some people who they are. I couldn't tell you, but some people were comparing some of his ability on the run to that of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And from an arm talent standpoint, I definitely think it's there. So I'll be curious to see what the developmental process looks like.
They do work with the same guy, FYI.
They do.
They do.
Okay.
Bobby Stroop, I think is his name.
Okay.
Yeah, APEC.
So that could have a lot to do with it because, the similarities you see will probably formed in the same drills.
Mhm.
So,
Sure.
but to focus on the high school kind of ripple effect, hats off to Riley Dodge. The way that he has handled this.
Hey,
man.
and real quick, it ain't like they don't have a dude.
Well, I was getting there.
Okay.
I was getting there. But I think that it speaks volumes to the coaches he's been around, the experiences he has, to be 31, 32 years old and be put in that difficult of a situation that is the first of its kind, and to handle it the way that he did. Just a lot of respect to him, and the things that he's learned from his dad and the path that he's been on from a player to a coach, I think has allowed him the opportunity to build a type of understanding and relationship to where he didn't spend his last breath with Quinn trying to convince him to stay.
Right.
That's an assumption. I haven't spoken to him personally about it, but I would confidently draw that conclusion. And I think that comes from a couple of different things. Understanding the negative impact of that kind of behavior, and then the other side of that being that, it's not like the cupboard's that bare.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I will say selfishly, I was a little pissed off that we weren't going to potentially see South Lake versus Westlake again.
100%. And, that was my immediate reaction, and I shared that on the last episode.
Yeah.
That, selfishly, acknowledging how selfish it is, but I want to see our best guys play against our best guys.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not to say that South Lake Carroll doesn't find itself with an opportunity to make that game still.
Oh, yeah.
Because they weren't ranked preseason where they were solely because of Quinn Ewers.
Right.
That team is deep, and it has a lot of experience coming back, and the potential to do some pretty remarkable things this fall is still there. Now, some guys are going to have to bring their level up, and this 6'4", 200-pound junior, what's his name?
Quinn Ewers, number 2.
Right. He's gonna have to play a little bit higher than people might think that he's capable of, but nothing out of it. You're not asking Muggsy Bogues to go play the post, right? You're not asking him to do something that's completely out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, and Riley's a good coach. I mean, obviously, I think from an offensive standpoint, he's going to be able to find ways to put that kid in a good position. Not put as much pressure on him as he would of Quinn. So,
for sure. So, the last part of that I do want to talk about, and I kind of touched on it in the last episode, is that I really don't think that this is the new norm.
Right. I mean, I think it's going to be one of those things, honestly, state per state. Like, and I know that's probably a bad example because, the first guy was a guy to leave, the state of Texas, which is a coveted state. But, I think it's going to be a little bit different and more per state. And if it's one of those things to where that state in particular is not very high on their high school football, and that kid has a chance to go, then obviously he'll probably go. And so I think it's going to be a little bit different. But again, I agree. I don't think he is like the igniter to everybody else starting to do this thing. I think his thing is pretty special, a lot of money, and I mean especially for an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah, and the other part of that is that the opportunity to do this was predicated off of a lot of academic work. He finished his junior year, and to meet the minimum state requirements to graduate high school, he was missing 1 credit.
Right.
So it's not like everybody is going to be presented with this opportunity to where they find out, they finish their sophomore year and they find out that they're a top 3, top 5 coveted prospect in the country, and then it's realistic for them to cram a bunch of credits in, either because their high school doesn't offer them, or because they're on pace to take a different path or whatever if their freshman year didn't go as smooth as they wanted, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of different factors that play into kids having the ability to do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we have to keep in mind. We can't just automatically assume that or suggest that the UIL and the state need to step in and fix this because one kid had an opportunity to do something that at this point is once in a lifetime.
Sure.
And until proven otherwise, I kind of hold on to that perspective. And then Greg Tepper made a really good point that like these companies that are making big time investments into programs for this NIL stuff, I don't know what the analytics are to show return on investment, but if they can't significantly prove that there's value in this investment, they're going to stop making it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this just to wrap it up. At the end of the day, today's generations are way different than years prior. The kid probably has dreams to go in the NFL. So the pros of staying, not saying that him staying wouldn't benefit him in that regard, but him leaving, in my opinion, does more for that to achieve that specific dream than staying. So, I mean, in that regard, if that's the only goal, yes, completely, I agree, right decision. I bet that did have a way in there too.
Well, it has to. I mean, the NFL draft eligibility rule is 3 years removed from high school graduation.
Yeah, and people piss me off, and they're like, "Well, show me a Ohio State quarterback." Shut up, right? Like,
seriously,
regardless of where you go, going in that extra year, being able to develop another year with great coaches like Coach Day, it's gonna help you. Like, so.
I mean, no disrespect, but Troy Smith was in the NFL for what, like a decade? Yeah. And Justin Fields just went, what pick? Top 10 for sure.
Well, he came from Georgia, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. I hate when people do that. I'm like, you're literally saying that eating Lay's chips from your couch, and you've done nothing with your life.
It's Mel Kiper analyst right there.
I get so mad. It pisses me off. It's time to move on.
It's time to move on.
I get so mad. Gosh dang it. Hard Knocks, Cowboys.
Dude, can't wait.
It's a big deal.
Dude, especially the way that the past 24 hours, Twitter's been going nuts because they had their little inner squad with the Rams.
Aaron Donald and Connor Williams
going at it.
Oh, yeah, he's just thumbs up and pinkies in and got Donald locked up.
So you got to assume that that's going to be right there in 4K, just deep into those scuffles.
Oh, yeah, Dak in the background, just getting the shoulder right.
Just, scuffle? All right, I'll drop 30 yards back and get out of shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to. The Hard Knocks has been something I still remember. I remember when the first Hard Knocks came out with the Baltimore Ravens right after they won the Super Bowl and seeing how much it developed and like how unique that experience was. One of my favorite clips of all time, there's two of them and they're actually connected, but Tony Siragusa like apparently hated work. You know, the guy's a Super Bowl champion, all-pro defensive tackle, and all he did the whole show was complain about practice and meetings and having to do his job. But the tight ends during Baltimore's training camp, they were at a Division III college, and the tight ends would meet in a portable building, and he somehow locked the door from the outside, tied it shut. So the tight ends got locked in their meeting room for 3 hours. And Shannon Sharp goes nuts. And he's like, "You humiliated me on national television. I want my restitution."
Oh, yeah.
And then fast forward 2 episodes. Because same thing, they were airing these episodes a week behind or whatever.
Yeah.
And they do the rookie show. And this undrafted kid goes out there and he's got a Massimo bucket hat pulled down over his eyes. And he's fake lisping and making fun of Shannon Sharp. And but those are that's the first time that the general public really got to see, training camp is such a unique just bubble experience that's so hard to relate to.
Yeah. I mean, it's what I like about it, it's Days of Our Lives times.
What I like about it is it's like a soap opera that my grandmother watches.
No, I mean the fact that that it is a week behind, and you're actually getting to kind of see what's happening live per se. I love that.
Yeah, it's. Hey, you just.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I could see out of the corner of my eye the head right there on the camera really freaked me out.
You really never know what you're gonna get when we film in my house. You know, Just a 30-pound
That
mammoth
boy
cat.
is thick,
Just-
too. He is
he's
so
just-
thick.
And zero concerns about what we're doing. He's just standing in the shot. Hey, go on, you little fatty. Get out of here. Go on. Anyway, you gotta love that. I just completely lost my focus. Let me regain it here. Oh, but it's the thing about training camp is that, like, and I don't know if you experienced this, but like there were two different versions. My freshman year at Baylor, thank God I didn't have to go. But my freshman year, they went to the Moore staff said you're going to a hotel. Nathan Elliott, when he was at UNC, it was the hotel life, and that's like, boy,
Yeah.
that's like jail.
It was like the brand new dorm rooms for us.
Yeah,
You know, that did seem like a hotel. And so you get like the classic, whatever it is, 5 a.m., you know, Coach Martin.
yeah.
Wake up.
But Coach Bryles and them, when I was at Baylor, it was just, be at breakfast at this time. And that was, not that it mattered, because you go home and what do? When you sleep.
Right.
Because you're exhausted and you lost 8 pounds that day, and then you had to eat 9 pounds of stir fry, and like you're just miserable. But it was a little bit different experience simply because we weren't, like, when you go to a hotel, when you do training camp at a hotel, you can talk about getting close. I personally think it leads to more of the like infighting during practice and whatnot, because you're around this. You're not just around the same guys. You're around like the same 80 guys.
Correct.
It's different in season because the offensive line is gonna be around the offensive line. They're gonna be around the same 10 to 12 guys every day.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in training camp, staying at a hotel, and a bus, you eat at the hotel, and a bus picks you up and takes you to the facility. And then you don't have a car, and a lot of places will take up phones, like different, whether it's at night or during the day, you're not allowed to have it at all. And then you do football all day.
Yep.
And even if you have like a 90-minute window in the middle of the day between like lunch and your next meeting, you can't go anywhere because you rode a bus there.
Right.
So, it always makes me think about Remember the Titans when the Gettysburg College little 2-a-day, 3-day experience they had.
Yeah, left side, strong side
Yeah.
action going on.
But you do see that. Like, that's where a lot of the immeasurable confidence and bonding happens, because those guys don't. So it's a give and take. I mean, if you're going to go to a hotel, if you're not going to go to a hotel. But at the end of the day, like, you've got to master those 2 to 3 weeks, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and find ways to be as efficient as possible at practice, but also find a way for those guys to like buy into the family, like, die for each other mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Because the ones that come out of camp healthy and with that mindset, there's a distinct difference. That was one of the biggest, most noticeable differences between each year. Is like 2009, we knew that we had like good athletes and we could go be competitive, but like there was still a big gap between like those first two classes that coach had and like the guys that were juniors and seniors.
Yeah.
And it shrunk every year until 2011, where it didn't matter if you were a freshman or a fifth year. Like, everybody spoke to everybody the same way. Everybody continued to attempt to educate each other in the same way.
Right.
And you see the elimination of those gaps, those age gaps, those recruiting gaps. And like I said, the biggest difference is that the teams that come out of that 100% healthy, or as close to 100% healthy as they can, but committed to their teammate, those are the ones that make the special runs.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. Absolutely.
So y'all start. We've been in practice for a week. Y'all start tomorrow.
Yep, start tomorrow. So we had freshmen last week, so that was awesome. Dude, it's a grind with freshmen.
Dude,
Like,
yeah, that's the definition of crawl before you walk.
I mean, those, whatever you had, like, I think for us it was like 11 periods, break, 11 periods, offense, defense. But those like 11 periods feel like 24 periods when it's with freshmen, because like it never fails. And maybe I think maybe as I get older, I'll end up learning more and more. I hope. Otherwise, I suck. But I just every single year, it doesn't matter where we go. Like these guys, here's our install. Here's day 1, 2, 3, 4, and then end up doing day 1B, day 1C, day 1D install because like you just always assume in your mind it's just varsity. You know what I mean? You're like, man, these guys, we just need to teach them football.
Yeah, like last week during one of our freshman practices, I hear one of the running back coaches. He's like, if he's lined up right here, it's a 3 technique, and the kid's just like, numbers. I thought I was playing tight end. What? I don't. And I go,
3
hey man, he probably
technique?
doesn't know what that means. And the coach looked at me and he goes, I know he doesn't know what it means, but he's gonna learn it right now and he's never gonna forget it. And it's those little things that you take for granted.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier to do it. The younger you go, the easier it is to take things for granted. But I still catch myself taking things for granted, like with our varsity guys.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah.
you think the easiest way to do it too is to have like 2 good practices. And you're like, oh, we're there. We're crushing it. They know it all. I can throw any curveball at them I want.
Yeah.
And that is just not true.
Yeah, I think because you got to do a really good job. Like, and I've said it before on here, but you have to do a really good job at like knowing when, like, if you have a 4-day install and you just did day 1, and your kids are struggling, you got to know when it's okay. No, we need to go to day 2 because, like, I'm confident that we did it the best we could for day 1, and you guys just got to drink water through the fire hose and catch up, or like crap. You know what? We need to just go back to day 1, and because we screwed up and we didn't teach it the best we could, and it was just too much maybe. So it's a fine balance, but you also got to get it in too. It's tough.
Got to get it in.
it's a grind. So yeah, we'll start this week, and try to prepare for the scrimmages and all that type of stuff. It's just crazy because like back in Tennessee, we're already going now for.
Yeah, like 2 months.
Like 2 months full pads or something like that, whatever. So
I'll never forget the first summer you were up there, and it was like mid-June, and we still could only practice. We still could only do summers 4 days a week. We couldn't even go 5.
Oh
With,
yeah.
like strength conditioning, and it's like Friday, and I think I texted or called you. And I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, we have like a 45-minute break before our next staff meeting. We had to practice this afternoon." I'm like,
It was like June 20th
Yeah.
or something like that.
"Oh, sick." So like, when you say practice, this is just like another workout session. No, this is practice.
No, yeah.
They have helmets on.
Yeah, we've got helmets on. It was so different. Coach Dilfer's like, man, we got to get it in and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I know. When do we start again? Week after school ends. What? We've got plenty of time. I'm used to having 2 weeks for an install, and then you start your season. So, yeah, kind of back to that install, but yeah.
But I've seen other states that they play like scrimmages, like in July.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do like practice inter squads or whatever.
Jamborees.
Is that what it's called?
The Jamboree.
I heard a Coach Mackey he just posted a video talking about like scrimmage approaches, and he was like, everybody, the norm I think is like 2 scrimmages and a jamboree, but like the jamborees, that's the first time I ever heard of it. I had no idea what it was.
Yeah, you end up having 2 teams there, and like can scrimmage those 2 teams right then and there. You got 7-on-7 with both of them. You end up scrimmaging both of them, or some people will go 4 and they just rotate those. It's different.
Did y'all do that at Lipscomb?
I want to say I don't think we ever had a 2-team jamboree, anything like that. And also some people kind of consider it more of just like, oh, it's like a real game scrimmage type thing, like uniforms and whatnot, and versus our normal scrimmage where we kind of stretch away. This one we're going to treat more like a true game. But yeah, I mean that's where it's like really different. Is you have like your true 7-on-7, and you'll do quite a bit of that for like a good hour. You're just going at it. Yeah, it's different.
Bro, we did one-on-ones for 20 minutes yesterday, and I was like running out of routes to call.
Yeah.
And I thought that was long.
Yeah, dude.
An hour of 7-on-7.
But that's where, like, for me, like, going back to the last couple years in Tennessee, like, we had to be smart about making sure that week 5 felt like week 5 and not, week 12, just because you're starting so early. So, yeah, it's very different. So now, I've had to flip my mindset and try to just force myself to feel like I don't have any time, just so I make sure that, get it all in. So, yeah, we'll see.
That's one of the things that when the UIL expanded and said we could go 5 days a week, I had a conversation with a coach, kind of on those same lines. Just it's a hard balance, especially for smaller schools. I think big schools it's a little different, but smaller schools it's a fine line to walk. Just because you can have them
right
for this amount of time doesn't mean that you need to have them for that amount of time every day or every week.
Yeah, you can beat that drum a little bit too much sometimes.
Yeah, and like I mean, I think one of the most important things is because football is such a unique sport, right? We practice way more than we'll ever play. Unlike basketball, unlike baseball, which play 82 and 162 games respectively, right? You're talking about a really good high school football season has 16 games. But those kids are expected to be working towards that potential 16-game season from January all the way through. And I think one of the most valuable things is finding a way to maximize your work efficiency with built-in escapes, because I think one of the most important factors is when the kids come back and it's new.
Correct. Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's the one thing that I'm trying to get our team to do it right now and learn how to do it. And you're going to have, like, I get it. Like, you do have to practice. You do have to hit each other in order to learn football. I completely agree. But also, to your point there, you can't do that for 16 weeks every single day and expect, like, well, you know, we're going to be healthy too. And it's inevitable. Well, I mean, I get it. Injuries are going to happen, but you can't say it's inevitable. Like, you can protect your players in better ways. Like, so I'm big about, like, teaching the kids how to practice. Like, hey, guys, if we've got 4 periods, if you guys can truly learn how to have a very good walkthrough mentally, like, it's a grind. Like, it's the intensity of inside, but mentally, that's our walkthrough. That's how intense it is. If you can do that for 2 periods, I feel good about having 2 physical periods. But if you can do it for 1 period, now we got to go 3 of physical. If you can't do it all, now we got to go 4 of physical. And, like, learning how to have that balance, and until you have a mature team that can actually do that, I feel like you're only asking yourself to try to, you know, end up going 16 weeks and in and out every day, and then somebody gets hurt and you're surprised. Well, you're pounding all day long.
100%.
You got to fix that.
I think that practice templates, like one of the big things that we did this year was, you know, even though we're coming out of a COVID season and we're hoping this is the most normal we can be, right? You know, Coach Elliott, hey, here's a copy just in case you didn't have them or whatever, kind of refresh your mind. This is what week 1 looked like last year, right? But then the fluidity and the self-reflection to, like, okay, we don't need to turn in all the workouts. We don't need Saturday's workout built Monday before we see the kids.
Right.
Like the fluidity to say, hey, I know normally on Tuesdays we do our one-on-one pass rush, one-on-one receivers and DBs, but hey, we ran the ball 65 times last week and our line's pretty banged up. Like, let's find another period. Let's hold off on that. You know, the fluidity to do those kind of things. And like you said, I think that coaching a kid through a practice script is just as valuable as coaching them in practice. Yep. Hey, here's the layout. I know Coach Elliott posts ours every day.
Yep.
The script's posted, periods, here's how long they are, here's what you got, et cetera, et cetera. And those kids know, okay, so we got to do tackling circuit today on defense. Oh, we're doing, you know, we got 8 minutes of 7-on-7 today. Cool. We got 5 minutes of routes on air, whatever it is, you know, and it allows for the mental preparation. And then if you see anything during, Coach Elliott's really big about, like when we dynamic, when our kids are stretching, that's an opportunity for you to be kind of diving into their mindset. Where are they? Who needs some love? Who needs to be picked up? Who needs to kind of be pushed, or, you know, remind them where the standard is, et cetera, et cetera. And I think those are the kind of things that if you can, it needs to constantly, it doesn't need to be evolving, but it just needs to be fluid in the sense that we're not rigid to this is what Monday is always. This is what Tuesday is always. Because all it takes is, you know, 1 or 2 starters to not be moving full speed, and we had this conversation in our office yesterday. It's not just like, hey, we need to watch and monitor our physicality, but you got to watch and monitor your athleticism as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You more athletic kids, if you're collectively more athletic, you tend to be able to go through more physical practices with less injuries. It's when the collective athleticism of your team drops from year to year or whatever that those physical periods can lead to lingering injuries because guys don't know how to fall. They don't know how to tell when they're too tired. They don't know how to read those things about their own body.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. You know, one thing that we're going to do this year, I've never done this before. I'm sure people listening probably have, so it's nothing new to them. But we kind of came up with 2 tempos. So for like each period, I'm going to highlight basically yellow or green, and we'll actually echo that to each kid. So for example, yellow is a more of a, a little bit more than a walkthrough type of tempo, but it's more of a, hey, we ain't gonna kill you right here. So a good example would be a Monday, like a Monday team, like first team segment when you're kind of showing them, hey, here's a defensive front. Here's what we're getting. Hey, this is going to be yellow, yellow, yellow. That way the kid's mind triggers, oh, okay, this is a slower segment. I'm not going to be getting gassed here. I need to lock in more. And then the next tempo, let's say we're going something like a team takeoff or whatever. Hey, this is green, green, green. And now the kid has to flip that switch like, okay, green, green, green means we are freaking going as fast as we can. And, we won't go green for more than, obviously we will rotate, 1s, 2s, and 3s, but we won't go more than green for probably 2 periods, I'd say. But the kids now know, and they have to flip that switch. Just like for me, I'm big about flipping the switch at halftime. Know when to lock in at halftime, make the adjustments, but then realize, boom, okay, we're going to third quarter. Instead of halfway through the third quarter, realizing now you're in the third quarter.
And that's the worst.
It's the worst. And so now, like, you can kind of, if you make those breaks throughout practice, if you can make those tempos happen, hey, we're yellow, and then the next period we're green, and hey, now we're yellow, they're having to constantly, like, learn, how to change those tempos in their brain, but more importantly, they're learning how to practice. Now, week 15, you got 3 green segments, and that's all you need. So we'll see if it works. Could be a disaster, but
yeah, no, I like that. I like that a lot. You're sitting there explaining it, and I'm sitting there going, okay, I can't use yellow and green because it's got to be somehow orange, white, or gray. I got to make it Salina affiliated, but I need to look into doing that.
Yeah,
because I think that's. I mean, hey, there's a couple things that you don't do in Salina. You don't wear black because this isn't Pilot Point.
Gotcha.
And you don't break haircut or facial hair policy. You just don't do it. But, I know that'd be tough for you.
That's a big deal.
But I think that, I get caught sometimes of trying to, like, make every period a go period. Like, why can't your mind just go fast?
Yeah.
And then sometimes have your mind go fast, and then other periods have your body go fast. Like, why can't you do that? The fact of the matter is that it's, Gary, who Gary V is?
Yeah, you're talking about
the crazy, like,
Vandercheck or whatever. Yeah, the dude that can just sell ice to an Eskimo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what a lot of people don't know about Gary V is that he has either still owns or has started and sold like a multitude of wildly successful companies. That's where his reputation came from. But he said something the other day that I think resonates, not obviously just to who he's talking to, but to really any facet of life. He said that the thing that blows my mind is when CEOs expect their employees to love the company and what it does as much as they do. Yeah. And I think that's something that coaches have to remember is that, like, you might be listening and you might be at Florida or Ohio State or Michigan or, and now, hey, appreciate it. Thanks for giving us your time. But the vast majority of us aren't, right? And the vast majority we're dealing with kids who do this because it's fun. Yep. Or they do it because their friends do it. There's a lot of kids that play high school football that don't necessarily like football. They like hanging out with the boys. Mm-hmm. And you have to keep in mind that those kids don't love the game the way you love the game.
Right.
And even take it to the next level. Not all coaches love the game the way you love the game.
That's right.
They may love coaching and they may love kids, but they don't necessarily love the game. Yep. And keeping that at the forefront of your mind is going to make life a lot easier when you have to deal with slowing down the tempo of a period of practice to be more literal in your teaching.
Yep.
Or ramping up certain aspects on certain, being fluid to all of those things, being able to respond, understanding the people and not the perception, what you think they should be, but who they really are.
Mm-hmm.
I think is what's going to allow you to be successful in handling those different type of situations.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, that's a good point. I think we always try to put our point of views from our lenses. And well, why is, my perspective of this guy, why can he not get it? Well, because you're looking at it through your lens. You don't see it through your lens. You don't see it through your brain. You know what I mean? You got 2020, he's got 2010. Maybe if you look through it at 2010, now you'll see his perspective.
100%. And I think that was, that whole idea is something that I had to learn trial by fire last year. I saw this thing that was going to be my new role in this new offense and all these new things. This is how I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is that that's great if the pieces of the puzzle you're making fit that picture.
Right.
But if they don't, what are you going to do about it?
Correct.
Right? Are you going to adapt to your personnel? Are you going to adapt to your coaching staff?
That's right.
Are you going to adapt to your community? How are you going to respond to when your perception and their reality have a disconnect?
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, it's huge. I mean, yeah, just like you said too, just how you have to adapt to your personnel and stuff like that. Even though you those are your coaches, you got to learn how to adapt to them as well. Know what they can and can't do. So that's good point.
So the last thing I wanted to ask you about, how do you feel about manufactured adversity or manufactured tension during this time, because it happens?
To my coaches creating stuff, like creating issues, like head coaches creating issues.
I wouldn't say issues, but just one of the best examples I ever heard was, and I can't remember specifics, but I remember the story, and it stuck with me forever because I think it happens way more than people are really aware. It was an NFL training camp, and the O-line coach stops one of his veteran players, and he's like, "Hey, I already talked to John, but I need you two to start a scuffle today. We were flat yesterday. Team was soft. There was a lot of brother-in-law, and we can't afford that crap. So he knows it's coming. Set the tone, but be smart. Take care of each other. Stay off the ground. But I need you two to get into a little fight." Okay. How often do you think that? Have you been a part of that? Maybe not to that extreme. Maybe not to that level.
Maybe not to my knowledge.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
One of those you sit back and reflect, and you're like, "Was I a pawn just now?"
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just so hard for me to always want to say, I don't think you should do that, because I would say maybe last resort. Like last resort because your coaches can't make the energy happen. Last resort because your players aren't motivated enough. Last resort because your schedule of practice doesn't allow the motivation for your players to want to have the juice. Last resort because you've made your practices so hard that they are tired. You know what I mean? Like, I would put it in that regard, and there's probably some coaches that are right now hating me, but I'm like, I feel like if you have to get it to that point, and you're having to force a fight, there's an issue there. And I guess lastly, I would say, know your team as well. You know what I mean? Like that. I mean, if you're looking at the Raiders from back in the day, that was probably a daily thing.
Yeah. And
that probably worked for them. I mean, that's who they are. But yeah, just for who I am, I don't agree with that method, unless it's just like, man, everything else I've done has sucked so far, and this is all I have left to do. Let's try it.
Well, and I feel like I painted the picture that that's the only way of manufacturing that kind of adversity or tension. I know Coach Kaz used to do it where it was very apparent and very obvious that this was going to be a day of repeating, because for whatever reason, something had set the tone that the team wasn't focused on the details they needed to. So you were going to be held to an even higher standard than one have already existed. So you're not going to be able to get through dynamics without going back.
I think that's different. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I mean. I think there's levels to it for sure.
Meek Mill. So yeah, I mean, I guess I went directly the route of like creating a fight or something like that.
We don't always have to choose violence.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I mean, in that regard, yeah, I think there's times to do that. At the same time, though, I also think that that's one of every 20 days. Whatever.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where you do that too much, and that's how you lose that team.
I had a conversation with a coach just last week, and he said, in regards to like position meetings, he was like, every 2 days there's always that meeting. When it comes to our guys, there's always that meeting, and when that meeting happens, there's a visible change in their focus and their effort and their attitude. And it doesn't always happen. Sometimes it happens on day 3. Sometimes it happens on day 9. But at some point, that collection of teenagers, because I think every group in high school, I think you're a direct reflection of your position coach.
Absolutely.
And sometimes they lose that connection of the room's personality earlier. And sometimes they lose it later. But whenever they lose it, that meeting is our opportunity to remind them of what the representation is supposed to be, what the standard is.
Yep.
And it doesn't always sound the same. It doesn't always happen at the same time. But the vast majority of the time it produces the same result. And I think those are things, good coaches, great coaches, their feel for those situations is one of the most invaluable pieces of their professional career.
Yeah, just psychological awareness. That's one thing. That's a great point, 'cause that's one thing that Coach Shavers talks about a lot, just in regards of like your kids are a direct reflection of you, and I've always believed that. And it's one of those things to where I know that there's some of those kids who are like, dang it, like you can't help it, and then that's not who I am. But I agree 100% to that, and it's one of those things to where, to your point, great coaches have great awareness of that, and they have the ability to know when to turn that switch on and when to turn it off. And when they can do that, and they can control that thermostat. That's an elite coach.
And I think when teams become really special is when, and it doesn't always have to be seniors. High school, college doesn't always have to be seniors, but when your leadership understands that.
Yeah.
I know one of the biggest things that like when Coach Kaz was into year 2 and like his personality was our team, right? Everybody, it's so crazy. I mean, you can attest to this. When people talk about like when you've ever spoken to like any of my teammates, there's 2 people they talk about. Yeah. Every single one of them. Doesn't matter what position, what side of the ball, doesn't matter. They're going to talk about coach and they're going to talk about
Cab and Kaz, yeah.
And that's it.
Yep.
And it's because those are, extremely influential, highly productive men in their profession. But there was a moment where that leadership, those starters, those seniors started to adopt that accountability aspect. And I'll never forget a spring football practice. I think I've told you this story. Jordan Lake, we had spring ball, and we're having one of those Saturday inter squads, a little 20, 30 place inter squad or whatever. And this new walk-on receiver comes across the middle, and Jordan's sitting there, could have easily picked the ball off. This kid was going with the 2s because of some injuries. A couple guys were banged up, and Jordan's starting safety and could have easily just stepped in front, picked the ball off, turnover, whatever, and he just sits there flat-footed. And lets the ball hit the kid's hands and then just folds him like a lawn chair. And I'm done already. And he comes over to the sideline and like the 3s are going. And he came, took a knee, and we're drinking water. I was like, why? Like, why? And he goes, you just got to make sure they're not here just for the T-shirt. Everybody needs to be reminded what the expectation is. And I was like, man, that's mean. But now, the farther away you get from the event, the more value you see in it. And that was one of those things where, he may not remember that, the kid may not remember that, but I'll never forget it because I think that there's something deeper in the the psychology of a team in moments like that.
100%. Yep.
Never been self-conscious about that until right now. I hate you so much.